My 38M daughter, 13F, isn't biologically mine. How do my wife, 35F, and I finally tell her? Hello. I started dating my wife when she was 4 months pregnant with her ex's child. The ex was abusive and fled several states away when he realized she wasn't going to abort the baby. I was there in the room when she gave birth, and daughter has always known me as her dad. We've been wanting to tell her the truth for a while but wanted to wait until she was old enough to process the information. But now it's getting to where I think it may be too late. What is the best way to tell her? And what can I expect after the truth is revealed? I'm the result of a really bad abusive relationship. My mom finally left while she was pregnant with me. She met my dad that raised me when I was 3 months old. He considered me his child from the very start. He never wanted me to know the truth because he didn't want me to think differently of him. When I was 11, a family member mentioned something that made them realize that if I found out, it should be from them. So one day they sat me down and told me the whole story. It felt kind of weird at first, but I understood why they did things the way they did. He will always be my dad, especially with all the ancestry tests and everything now that are so popular. It's going to be better coming from her parents, so I would suggest having that conversation sooner rather than later. Close Reddit and talk to a professional. We have no idea anything about you, your life, your child. After you talk to a professional and get the initial band-aid, rip off the message I would focus on as a pseudo-adopted dad myself. I choose you. I am here because I want to be your dad. I have always loved you like my kid. And that's never ever going to change. The person who is your bio-dad is not part of your life. And that is probably for the best, but you're old enough to know this information. And if you want to know any more about him in the future, we will tell you whatever you want to. No, the focus needs to be on continuity. This doesn't change anything. It's been the truth your whole life. You are still my beloved kid and I always want to be part of your life. But also be ready to answer the question asked above. Why are you doing this? Why now? Because that's gonna be her concern. Are you guys divorcing? Are you gonna leave? Is he trying to get in touch? Why tell me now? Why didn't you tell me before? Have good answers for these questions. And if you don't, hey, you don't actually ever have to tell her. You're her dad, in fact, if not in biology. This calls for a professional, not Reddit. That said, as someone who works in MH, I'm aware that research suggests sooner than later is the least traumatic and leads to the best outcomes for their sense of identity and relationship with parents. Speak to your wife and start planning how you are going to disclose this ASAP. Edit. I have personal experience with this too. One of my sons isn't biologically mine. Sperm donor never told. Meant to adopt, disclose before divorced his mother. Him not knowing he wasn't bio-mine led to unfortunate series of events around telling him. We're good now, but would have preferred it was handled very differently. Maybe look for a kid shrink before telling her if this goes sideways. 14 is a difficult age. I don't understand why adults, and yes I am an adult, think that there's a magical age to drop bombshells on kids. Children are incredibly resilient and intelligent. This information would have been digested more easily and in a healthy way with professional help. At a younger age, get professional help and go with God. As an adoptee, I feel like you definitely should look into adoption. Facing Realities group on Facebook. You'll get a lot of solid, and likely brutal, feedback from people that have been in your daughter's shoes. Hello. I know you have to be dealing with a ton of emotions about this. I've been through it as well. The best thing you can do is sit down and calmly explain the story to her. She is old enough to process this and realize just how lucky she was that you came into her life. It is much better than her finding out by accident. I met my wife when she had 3 little girls. The oldest was 3 years old. The youngest was 7 months. I talked the birth father into giving up custody so I could adopt them. My daughters found out when the youngest was 11 years old. One of them went through some old boxes and found the court adoption paperwork. She told her sisters about it, and I got a call at work from my wife saying they were all freaking out. I spent half my shift freaking out as well, wondering how they would react knowing the truth. My biggest fear was a "you're not my dad" comment. After sitting down as a family and explaining everything, everybody calmed down a bit. I was still worried, but my youngest saved the day at the end of the conversation, saying something to the effect of, "So basically all you're saying is we got lucky." All the concern and fear I had evaporated, and it's been back to normal ever since. Your daughter is 13. She's spent her whole life with you as her dad. The other guy is someone that just bailed on her without giving her the chance you did. Tell her this and she'll probably love you even more. This is not gonna be an easy thing to tell her. Not because the information itself, but because you withheld it from her. She should have been informed long ago. I myself am adopted, as is one of my other 2 siblings. Growing up, our parents never withheld this information because there is no reason to. When you are a kid with parents who love you, you perceive those people as your parents. For me, having kids that were not biologically yours was as normal as having ones that were, because for me, it was normal. If anything, it seemed odd that parents could have a child accidentally. I knew my parents wanted me because they adopted me. You making a big deal about the blood connection makes it a big deal when it really isn't. You're her dad. The real issue is that you hid this information. I don't know how you should tell her, but you still should. These things have a way of coming out, and it's far worse when your kid discovers a parent has been lying to them or hiding something. Bro, this is not a question for Reddit LMAO. There's gotta be professional resources out there on how to deal with this exact scenario. He may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy. Yando Udonis. My boyfriend was the baby in this situation. When he was 15, he found out from an extended family member that his dad wasn't his biological dad. He has had major resentment issues since then because of it. Like everyone else, you should definitely consult a therapist or someone of the sort that could lead this to happen in the least chaotic way possible. Please, 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 do not tell her without seeking professional help from a family therapist on all of this. Family sessions allow you to process big things like this as a family. I don't think 13 is a good age because she just hit puberty and her hormones are on overdrive. She's changing and is in a vulnerable state emotionally, mentally, and physically as it is. Find a therapist that deals with family issues. You and your wife should meet with them to go over the best ways to handle this. What to expect after she is told, and how best to handle issues that arise. I would continue to have that therapist available for you and your wife to talk to as things arise. Either be willing to have family therapy with her or get her own therapist once you do tell her, so that she can have a safe place to process the information. From experience, I'm adopted. I was always told I was adopted and grew up knowing it from a very young age just fine. That being said, I've known a few people who were adopted but were not told, or were told when they were adults. They said it sucked, like their whole life was a lie. So I always empathize with the child, whatever age, when they find out they will be angry, hurt, betrayed, etc. It's never okay to lie, especially if you don't think that a child can handle it. And as a teenager, well, she's bound to give you and your wife hell and possibly want to seek out her Bio, Dad, because XYZ. It sucks, but you needed to tell her a long time ago. And now that you can't undo the past, tell her ASAP. Because if she doesn't hear it from you too and finds out on her own or via a relative, you've lost your change to explain your decisions and caused her to feel even more betrayed in the process. You gotta suck it up and tell her the truth before it's too late. Op. For any of you with adopted kids, this is Exhibit A in a lesson on why not to hide that information. Be honest. My daughter has known my husband since she was 1.5 years old, and her dad's always been in her life. She knows he's not her biological dad, but she views him as her dad. There's even been a point recently she called him her real dad but stopped herself and called him by his name. I think telling her what happened. How did you feel when you met your wife and found out she was pregnant? How did you feel when she was born? How do you feel now? Have you ever claimed to be her biological dad or just never brought it up? 'Cause if it was never brought up, you never lied to her. I think her response would depend on the kid. My daughter doesn't like spending time with her father and feels like my husband earned the title of dad. I have until this last year been very careful to not lie but not speak poorly of her dad. He was mentally abusive and a terrible partner. When I tell my oldest her birth story, I've omitted the parts where her dad was selfish and unsupportive while I labored. Even after she was born and taken to the NICU, I wanted her to form her own opinion about him. She's 10 now. She's had a solid opinion about him most of her life. Nothing I could say could change her mind, unfortunately. I know I didn't really answer your question, but I hope somewhere in this anecdotal advice you glean. So help. As a daughter raised by her daddy, rather than her sperm donor, I can tell you that what's most important is that she understands your love for her is real, pure, and will never waver. Any man can donate sperm, but it seriously takes a special person to be a daddy. I'm 53 and still call him daddy. The other important thing is you chose her. You knew the circumstances. You chose to sign up for the long haul. That means everything. My sperm donor was in my life only because my mom loved his family and they were always very good to me, but he was just sort of there. Not really involved in any substantive way. When I was 5, my daddy adopted me. Of course I didn't really understand what was happening at that time, but when I was much older it was easy for me to rationalize that if my sperm donor really had wanted to be a dad, he wouldn't have signed his rights away. Good luck to you, my friend. It will work out in the end because you've been there and hopefully been a wonderful daddy. Several of my family members have adopted children and no one keeps it secret for the recommendation of family therapists. Blood links mean so much to many, but they are broken just as easily as any bond, despite what people think should be the case. The family you choose day in, day out, especially choosing to integrate into a family unit, means so much more. Green flag 1. Add in a complicated dynamic like abuse. And most run. You didn't. Green flag 2. It would have been so easy for you to walk away at any point, during any major argument. And you never did. That child is yours just as much as she is her mom's. Sit her down with mom and let mom lead with some history for context. Then maybe you can both share parts of how you met and fell in love. You can take over how you feel in love with being her dad. Add in some of your favorite moments of her growing up or that you shared together. Answer her questions however she prefers, together or separate. And just be honest about it all. Her feelings will be her own, but yours will always be love, dad. Heart. As many others have suggested, I'd talk with a therapist about how to tell her. My opinion is that you should tell her sooner rather than later. I was told by my parents very early on, so that I just grew up with the knowledge and we had more in-depth conversations as I got older and my understanding grew. As an adult, I'm very grateful they took that route, and I still see my parents as mine. I'm sure you guys chose to do differently for your own reasons. But even at 13, it's better to let her know young and let her grow with that knowledge. I think at worst she could be upset that you waited. Hopefully she'll be understanding about it. But I think a therapist could help you prepare for what to say and how to respond to her reaction.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.